Hi, Needham. Raise your hand if you are both a licensed real estate broker and a licensed general contractor. That's us.
Hey, what about that?
I guess we are equipped to host What's My House Worth? My name is Rob Tickton.
And I'm Ryan McDonald. We're with Hawthorne Real Estate, providing our clients brokerage services under Hawthorne Properties and design build services under Hawthorne Builders.
And what we do here at What My House is Worth is look at all the previous month's sales data, single family homes in Needham. And for this show, we're going to be taking a look at March, and we're going to begin the show the way we always do, Ryan, and that's by taking a macro look at all the month's sales in Needham. And unlike February, things are starting to uptick a little bit in March, wouldn't you say?
Yep, to the tune of 9 additional sales in March over February. We had 20 single-family homes selling in the month of March versus 11 last month, with an average list price of $838, down a little bit from $920 in February, and an average sales price of $816, which is also down from the high eights. But our sales as a percentage of list is 97% and 95% of the original list, which is always good to see that up over 94.
Right, that's a healthy number. And 20 sales for the month of March, the majority of those sales were over the course of the back half of the month, which I think indicates that things are really starting to heat up. And then the average sales price per square foot at $324. Last month, if you remember, it was at $332, which I believe was the highest we had seen.
Yeah, I think we both commented on that, yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if that number stays at that $325 range, which probably wouldn't be surprising with what we're seeing so far.
Yep.
And then days on market, we kind of see about 3 months, which is about par for the course right there. And an improved March of 2013 as compared with that of 2012 when 17 homes were sold. Always interesting to kind of see it in context, and one way to do that is to take a look at the previous 6-month sales data to get kind of your arms around the trend and to see how things are looking in Needham. And Ryan, you look at that graph right there, and what does it tell you?
It tells you, just like as you mentioned, we're starting to see an uptick, and I think we're going to expect to see that continue to go up with even more sales in April and May, considering what we've seen on the market. With so many houses coming on and coming off so quickly, that I would expect more closings comparatively in the coming months.
Right, and as you look at that graph also, the average sales on a monthly basis is 21 sales per month. So with 20 in March, that tells us that we're kind of right on the average over the course of the last 6. It also leads us to our next graph, which is also a 6-month graph, but instead it tells us how previous Marches have been since 2008, and the average sales in the month of March in Needham for single family homes is 18, so 20 in relation, pretty good number.
Yep.
But March 09 probably dragging that down a little bit, wouldn't you say?
I mean, pick it up March 09.
Yeah, I know, we've done better than that.
Right, there's nothing we can do about it now though, unfortunately.
Yeah, except we can go probably 2 years in the future and get rid of it.
Seriously.
But 20 seems to be par for the course for the month of March. And I would assume we're going to see that kind of uptick a little bit as we go through the spring market.
Yep.
So we know what March means, which is so far so pretty typical in comparison with previous Marches over the last 6 years. And so now we're going to jump in and take a look at the individual sales over the month of March. And we're going to start the way we always do, which is the lowest sales price and work our way up to the highest sales price. And the low man on the totem pole is 19 Riverside Street, Ryan.
19 Riverside. This is in a little, I guess it's a kind of a enclave that's just on the other side of 128 as you get into Newton. So it's one of the last points of Needham before you get into Newton. There's a nice little park there that I think a lot of people may not know about. It's got some softball fields, got a lot of room to run around. This is a house that's sold for $356,000. So it's really, I mean, anytime you're talking about the threes, that's definitely low. So but it is on a small lot, 3,500 square feet.
That's as small as we've seen.
Right. So the house is actually almost half of the lot size as far as the square footage of the house being 1,624. So that's a small lot, but I mean, you're getting into Needham near a nice little park in the threes.
Right. Also appeared to be a bank deal. The listing agent on that, Karen Brosnan, does a lot of bank deals all over around the greater Boston area. But that's a lot of square footage, 1,624 for that sales price. And oil spill in the basement, it said there.
But
It said
cleaned
it was
up, but
cleaned
cleaned
up.
up.
But still, maybe scares a few people, even a cleaned up oil spill.
Possibly. It'll just I mean, it brings upon a little bit more diligence that you're going to have to do before you agree to buy it. But the property on the market for almost 100 days, came down in price pretty significantly. So it looks like somebody did their homework.
So that's a listing that's on one side of 128. If you just take Highland Ave and go to the other side of 128, you can hit Sachem Road, which brings us to our next listing, one of two actually on Sachem Road. The first one though is 118. This one sold for 432.
It's a relatively small house, 864 square feet on a relatively big lot, almost 14,000 square feet. So you're paying $500 a foot, but there's opportunity here. I mean, you can redevelop this, you can add on to it. So you can do a lot. So you're in there at 432 with plenty of room to grow.
I've got a fun stat for you.
Okay.
341 single-family sales in Needham over the last 12 months. This listing right here, the fourth smallest house.
Really?
Out of 341 to sell.
Okay.
22 Miller Street, the smallest. It was 750 square feet. So a smaller house, but a big lot. So there's a lot of room to do some things with that house.
It's got some growth opportunities.
Growth opportunities. Those should have been a listing sheet. It wasn't, but that's a good way to describe it. 450 Chestnut Street is not too far where this show gets shot, which is just kind of over.
Secret location. Don't tell me about it.
Sorry.
The lines building up in the parking lot. It's
just
not good for
as
business.
you leave town on the other side of the train tracks, just on the market for 18 days. When this thing popped on the market, I remember thinking it was priced pretty well for such a big lot.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's 16,000 square feet. I think there's two things working sort of against it. One being the train, as you mentioned, the other being Chestnut as a relatively busy street. So you can combat that a little bit with the size of the lot if you wanted to turn this into a larger home, be it just to add on to what's there or possibly as a knockdown. So we'll pay attention to that one. We'll see how it gets used going forward. But again, I mean, whenever you're talking about under the $500,000 threshold,
that's a big threshold.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, there aren't a lot of opportunities in Needham at this number, and there's really some great opportunities, some great buys.
Yeah, and there aren't many lots above 10, 12,000 square feet
Right.
under that $500,000 threshold either. 561 Webster Street is a house that's comparable in size to the one on Chestnut. This one was 1332 as far as square footage. Had some newer features to it right next to the high school, though.
Right, it basically the backyard abuts the high school. This is one of those ones where we see them from time to time where the seller kept it on for 109 days and then they got asking.
Yeah.
So
It had been. It came off the market and came back on, so that
but
helps.
Still, I mean, you're still getting, they got their asking price, so sometimes it does pay to be patient.
That's right, and usually that's the product of maybe a couple people interested in it, and so you can kind of work them against each other to get that listing price.
Right.
This house also had central air, which is a nice feature as we approach the summer months.
That's true.
You want to go back to Sachem Road?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, we're going to. 93 Sachem Road is the second house on our list that I feel like this might be my deal of the month.
Is it? Good
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
What do you think?
I'd love to hear why.
Well, thanks for asking, Ryan. I think I'm going to tell you. First of all, this house has a lot going for it. It has the garage. It's got the nice sized lot. It's the one thing that works against it is the electric baseboard heat, which makes me nervous when I see that on a listing sheet. But what I liked about this listing is very clearly, black and white, stated what the annual electric bill is.
Yep.
So $2,400 a year. Okay. I mean, I see electric heat. I get a little nervous. $2,400 a year for all electricity, including heat, makes me feel a little bit better.
Right, but what do we always tell our clients who ask for, what do the monthly heating bills look like? You always have to take those with a grain of salt because you don't know what your usage habits are compared to the seller.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
But you could probably see what the usage is when you look at the electric bills.
That's true.
And
you have them analyzed.
And you like to think, right, a forensic analysis.
Right.
And you could probably ask what they like to have the thermostat set at.
Yeah.
But, you'd like to think they're going to be honest about it.
Right.
But just on the market for 19 days, sold pretty close to list, and it's my deal of the
So
month.
just to clarify, Rob, this is your deal of the month for the buyer.
For the buyer.
Yes,
It's a good deal. And I mean, when you compare it with the other Sachem listing, you're talking about a house that's twice the size.
Right.
And not that it should sell for twice as much, but not a whole lot more was spent on it.
Yep.
And it's got the location, it's accessible to 128
Sure is.
Needham Heights. So it's my deal of the month, right?
All right, go for it. I like it.
Take that. 1082 Greendale is next up on the list as we continue to stay pretty close to 128, only a little bit down
Sure.
towards exit 18. This one had 2 beds up, 2 beds down, as is typical with a Cape. What else did you notice about 1082 Greendale Ave? Right?
A lot of square feet in the finished basement, close to 600. That contributes to its 2,400 square feet of total finished space. A lot of time on the market, 168 days. That's probably indicative of its location. Maybe came out of the chutes a little bit high at 579. Relatively small lot too. It's under 7,000 square feet.
It was assessed for $511,000, so pretty close.
Yep.
When you talk about sales price.
Yep.
The next listing was assessed at $442,000, so about $70,000 less, yet it sold for $10,000 more.
Yep.
And that is 842 Central Ave.
Right, and this one's right across from Valente Farm. So I mean, I guess that to me might work. It might work for you. It might work against you. I mean, it can develop a little bit more traffic. You're already on Central, which is a 2-lane road to begin with, and now you're putting a pretty heavily visited retail facility right across the street. So you're going to have some traffic, but it makes for good stooping when you're sitting out front watching things happen on a Saturday.
Yeah, and one other thing to note. This same house sold for $350,000. I don't know if you noticed, back in 2012. So this was a project that was purchased by a developer who did some work on it and turned around, and maybe they made some money, maybe they didn't. But either way, that's 842 Central Ave for you.
All right, great. How about that?
49 Elliott Road is next up, and if I remember correctly, this might be your deal of the month. Excuse me?
This might be my deal of the month, Rob.
Thank you.
So, and as we've seen sort of trending, is I typically take the deal of the month on the side of the seller.
Yes,
and
that's
again,
your thing.
I'm going to do it again here. In light of what we're seeing in the market right now, which we'll get into a little bit in our look ahead at the end of the show, but this might have been sort of what got the ball rolling as far as these properties going on the market and off in record time and getting good numbers. I mean, this went on in December, went off in 2 days, and it's not an A+ location. It's a split level, which a lot of people don't always look for in a house. 1,300 square feet, dated interior. Has a lot of upside as far as if you're going to go in there and fix it up, but getting 570 above asking, that's aggressive.
Big lot though, right?
It is a big lot. There's a lot to really grow into here if you're going to do the work, but at 570, 2 days on the market in December, that's sort of surprising.
Lots of pink tile in there, definitely a dated look on the inside. Yeah. And even though it's on Elliott Road, that's a hillside school district.
That's true, yep, that's a good point.
House, 106 Elmwood Road. Not really too much to be said about this house because the purchaser did not buy it for the house, did they?
No, this was a land sale. It's got a few kind of quirks to it as far as being a land sale. I mean, Elmwood is a great location. I mean, there's no question about that. But this side of Elmwood does have the train in the backyard. Although this property had a little sliver of land that was between it and the train that technically would belong to an abutter. But the property is sloped side to side, so it's got a little bit of hair on it from a development standpoint.
And some power lines too.
Yeah, the power
correct?
lines is. I mean, if you're ever standing back there and the train goes by, it's like 4 seconds of some background noise. But so your point about the power lines, I think, is a really good one. I think the power lines are more of a factor than the train. And
because they're always there.
Because they're always there. I mean, yeah. I mean, and they're obviously they don't make any noise, but I mean, when you're outside, when you're looking out your second floor windows, I mean, they're there. And people always push back about the train, but I really think the train is pretty much a borderline non-factor in these types of locations.
This house went under agreement on March 9th. It sold on March 21st. So that tells you what?
It sounds like a cash deal.
Cash deal.
Yeah.
So
We
no
like
contingencies, nice and clean. I'm sure the seller liked that
Right.
as well. 11 Briarwood Circle. This is an interesting location, kind of a good mix of high-end, new construction, also some older homes. This one seems like it's a little bit of an older home, but dressed up pretty nicely.
Right, but dressed up, but it is still going to the dance as a land sale. So this one had multiple offers, multiple builders. In fact, the first offer went under agreement. That builder backed out, and it went to the next highest bidder, and so they're going to be redeveloping that lot.
Will they be preserving the climate-controlled garage?
I don't think that's in the immediate plans.
Well, it's a good location for commuters, like the ones we had talked about. I know the listing agent certainly touted that on the listing sheet, also a cul-de-sac. Did you say cul-de-sac or cul-de-sac?
I try to say it really fast so no one really picks up on how I say it.
So say it fast.
Cul-de-sac.
Huh, yeah, you're right. 92 Lincoln Street is next up. This is a house that sold for a good amount of money for a house on Lincoln Street, considering there were some sales that sold for a little bit less, but it was really nicely renovated.
Yeah, if we had a category for what's my favorite house of the month, it's this one.
Wow.
Actually second favorite. Second favorite. We're gonna get one. But this one, the guy, the family that lived here, the husband was a carpenter, and he did a lot of built-ins in the house and did a lot of them really, really well.
On the first and second floor.
Yeah, so it was just that there was so much pride of ownership and like care went into this house. So a lot of times what we see when the homeowner's been in there for 30 years and they've done a lot of work themselves, that can be a negative. Whereas on this house, it was a positive. I mean, he really did a lot of cool stuff in there.
And people pay a premium for that.
Yeah, and he had remember when they were showing it, they had the book of like the pictures of all the renovations he was doing. It was like they really cared about it, and I think it went a long way. But the one thing about this house that I did notice, it's only 1,700 square feet, and the foyer, when you walk in the front door, was basically half the first floor.
Spacious.
Yeah, and it was like, what? That's just not, I mean, whoever designed the original house, it wasn't the best use of space. You have a gigantic foyer and not a lot of other big rooms on the first floor.
So you would agree it was stunningly renovated?
Yes, I think that's an apt description. I like that.
Another house that was renovated was 105 Beaufort Avenue. This was an interesting property. I'm sure some people were tracking its development. It's a house that needed a whole lot of work in 2012, sold for $505, and clearly the person who snatched this up had the intent to renovate and sell.
Yes, it was very small. It was dated, and it
was a mess.
It was a mess.
It was.
Okay, so and it's in a great location. So it was one of those properties that you knew on the back end of it was gonna have a lot of demand.
I don't think that
if properly renovated.
They probably didn't realize just how much demand it was going to have when you have a house that sells for over $50,000 more than list. I mean, that's startling.
Yeah.
849 to 905.
Yeah.
You talk about the location, though. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there.
Oh, not at all.
Across from Perry Park. Mm-hmm. The one reason why this house was renovated, as opposed to just knocked down and rebuilt, was probably the lot size. Right. 6,970, 6,970 square feet is not a very big postage stamp to build a house on.
Correct.
253 Rosemary Avenue is next up, and now we're starting to work our way into newer construction.
Young houses.
This is really young. This is adolescent houses.
Right. These people were not in this house very long.
Right. Built in 2011, they bought it. Shortly thereafter, they left, moved on to a different state, had to put their house on the market after living in it for just a year, and seemingly did pretty well also.
I would say so. I mean, they bought it for $920, and they resold it for about $100,000 more a year later. So, and having been in the house both times, prior to them buying it, and then when they put it on the market, they didn't do anything to it. So it's just a function of a steadily increasing, improving market here. So I would say that, the 253 Rosemary has done well twice.
I think there might have been some upgrades potentially that was not reflected in the previous price, I think.
Why wasn't I notified about this?
I don't know. I guess I could have told you beforehand. But the one thing I did notice about this house is not a lot of variety with regards to the paint colors.
No, there was one paint color.
One paint
throughout.
color.
And then the other thing was the tile in the master bathroom was the same tile as in like the hallway bathroom. So it really you didn't see a lot of creativity from the part of the developer, but it sold twice.
And people, at the end of the day, there are some people they really like new, and necessarily, what it looks like or things like different paint colors or different tiles isn't quite as important.
But one color.
Fun fact alert coming up for the next listing. That's 12 Pheasant Landing Road. Before I reveal my fun fact alert, anything you'd like to say about this one, Ryan, while people move to the edge of their seats?
I'll tell you what. This is a tough part of town to comp houses. They're all different. They're not like the typical Needham house. So. And
maybe that's why this one was overpriced.
I know. I guess I'm giving this agent a wee bit of a pass. I mean, this is kind of a pretty big pass, but it's not easy. So it's not always as simple as, this is going to sell for boom, done. So I mean, this one obviously was out there at a little bit too high of a price, but it's not easy. It's not easy to do, especially in this part of town.
Okay, so this house had 3 bedrooms. Over the past year, how many 3-bedroom homes have sold for over $1 million?
In the past year?
In the past year. The past 12 months.
5.
1.
Wow.
12 Pheasant Landing.
Wow.
The next closest was 31 Glendale, sold for $930,000.
Oh,
so there you
goodness.
go. Last year, There was one 3-bed.
Here's a fact. I don't know how fun that fact was. I didn't particularly enjoy it.
I thought it was fun. I don't know if the buyer finds it to be very fun. 98 Highgate Street is next up on our list. This house sold for $1,125, originally listed at $1.2.
Right, and I don't think we should be talking about the millions when we're talking about this house. I really was not overly blown away, and I didn't think it would go for this high of a number. There's a lot of work to be done in this house. I mean, it was built in 2000, but it was not lovingly maintained.
Agreed.
This house needs some real freshening up. And the location's phenomenal. That played a part into it. And again, strong market. But I would say this person's got some work to do in there.
This was a modular construction, as was 178 High Rock Street. And interestingly, when we look at this slide, you don't see a picture of the outside of the house, you see a picture of the inside of the house. Why might that be? What do we see in that picture, Ryan?
I mean, if you squint really hard, you can probably see there's baseboard heat next to the fireplace. So this is new construction fueled by baseboard heat.
You don't see it very often, do you?
No. With today's forced hot air, with hydro air, you can put in a really nice heating system without using baseboard heat. It just gets in the way.
It's nice to be inside, though, as we are now, this time of the month. So let's stay inside as we head over to 86 Garden Street. In fact, let's get some chairs and sit down and talk about this house. 86 Garden Street, what are your thoughts?
86 Garden Street, unique first floor layout. It's a train affected stop, but it's, $1.2 million for a relatively young house. They did offer a $5,000 bonus to the selling agent. What do you think about that?
I think it's a little bit of a slippery slope.
Yeah, I don't love that either.
Because I think it's okay as long as the buyers are aware of it and they're on board with it and they understand what it all means.
Yeah, because our fiduciary duties are to our buyers, and if you're throwing an incentive in there, it may, you don't want to ever influence an agent towards what they like to call steering, which we all learned in agent school is no.
Excellent. 70 Linden Street is next up. Same builder, I believe, as 86 Garden. Is that correct?
Either that or they have access to the same pictures.
Yeah, it's probably the same builder. And I believe it's a reputable builder, if I read the listing sheet correctly. This one sold for $1.3 million. It went above list. And the house, if I remember correctly, sold for $497, or at least the lot did. So the builder bought for $497, they sell for $1.3. Yeah, like you said, good spread, right?
Yep, and I think for this location, getting 1.3, I think is must be a nice house.
It's an in-town location.
Yep, true.
And so people like in-town locations, and 70 Linden certainly applies. 103 Paul Revere Road. I don't know if that's considered an in-town location, but I know it's considered to be a desirable location, as we have a healthy track record of homes that have sold for over $1 million on Paul Revere Road.
Yep, and even getting up close to 1.4, I think is a good number for this house. The yard is a little small; it's under 10,000 square feet, and it's not flat. So I think the house must have spoken, very highly.
And that picture is actually of a similar house, done by the builder. 60 Parker Road is, I believe that's our big seller, is it not?
Wow.
That is our big seller, and wow, a lot of interior pictures for us this month. What do you think about that? Should we start mixing it up, or is this just a blip on the radar?
Yeah, I mean, I think it might have something to do with the fact that the builder there didn't have his exterior pictures done at time of show.
Okay.
But 60 Parker, this was one of ours. This is one of ours that we're really happy with. It's really a unique floor plan. We've had a lot of compliments on it as far as that floor plan. I like the layout. It's a good use of space. A lot of open spaces in the house, and it has a sloping. A lot slopes to the back, so it was a really a great walkout basement. So which added a tremendous amount of light to that lower level, and I think it really worked. We're happy with it. I hope the buyers as well.
That does it. That's 20 homes right there for the month of March.
Boy, really goes by.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So let's do what we always do and take a look at the market snapshot. Take a peek at what's going on in the town of Needham as of April 1st, 2013. And the thing I think that jumps off the page for both of us is that first number, 39 active single-family listings. That's not a lot, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, people are just climbing out of their cars at rapid paces to get to these houses when they go on the market because they're going off so quickly, and there isn't a lot for people to look at. And I think what you're going to see is you're going to see a lot of sales. You're going to see a really low days on market in some of these upcoming months because the inventory is so few and far between, and people are clamoring to buy something. So it should be an interesting couple of months if we don't get more inventory.
I think we're going to see the number of transactions dip a little bit compared to last year, but it's not going to be because things are slow in the real estate market. It's going to be because the inventory is so low. Just not many people are selling right now, but the demand is fierce. Staggering.
Or fierce. Staggering.
It's fierce and it's staggering. And yeah, compared to the same time last month, 44, which we said was low for single-family listings. 73 under agreement, that's a good sign. So we're up on that front.
Yes.
So a lot of houses under contract, which should set us up nicely for the next few shows. Wouldn't you agree?
Good. So we'll have something to talk about at least.
Right. I think we're good for April and May, probably June, but come summertime, we might have to have just one big summer show.
Right.
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
Is it still winter? And then the average listing price is 167. That's a high number, keeping in mind that gets pushed up a little bit by that Lot X.
Our favorite Lot X.
It's on the market for $15 million. If you pull that one out of the equation, so take that $15 million listing out, then our average list price is $1.324 million, which is still
a little bit more
in its own right.
It is, but it makes a little bit more sense.
Agreed. Maybe we should do the median and the mean next month.
Yeah, we could do that.
Average days on market, 143 days. Come on, sellers.
That'll come down.
Needs to.
It'll come down.
And then average listing price per square foot, $353. So that's about, what, a quarter?
That might not come down, though.
Yeah.
I mean, seeing some of these prices that we're seeing.
We'll have to continue to track the trends of the dollars per square foot because, in my opinion, that's the number that seems to be telling the story. So even if you have the number of transactions start to dip a little bit over the coming months, if that number stays high, that tells us that it's still a healthy market and still a really good time to sell.
I mean, I don't think there's any question that the market is robust. It's just a matter of there just isn't enough for people to mull over. So you got to get out of that car, look at the house, and you're scratching an offer off in about 5 minutes.
So presumably some people are watching our show and maybe they're sitting on the sidelines thinking now is the time to sell. I think it might be. Would you agree? It is the time.
I would. In many cases, you could argue, and I think we may have said it before, your house has never been worth more than it is right now.
And if they do want to sell and they need that little nudge or they have some questions or comments or need to get a clarification on something, what would be the number that they might call so we can help them out?
They can call us at 781-707-6564.
Again, the number is 781-707-6564. Ryan, do you have that email address as well in case some of our more tech-savvy viewers want to reach out to us via the keyboard and they don't want to talk to us?
It is rob.ryan@hawthornere.com.
One more time, please, Ryan.
rob.ryan@hawthornere.com.
Okay. Any thoughts as we start to move our way towards April? What are you looking for this month?
Looking for some good weather, and we're looking for some inventory, so we have something else to talk about down the road.
Me too. I can't say it any better than that.
Good, good.
That'll do it for What's My House Worth alongside Ryan McDonald. I am Rob Tickton. We appreciate you coming by, and we will see you again soon.
Have a nice spring.